G'day, Keithy here. Thanks for joining me again on another FIFO video this time. Unfortunately, the sun's not really doing too much today. It's a little bit overcast. A little bit of unexpected rain in North Queensland. Very odd for the month of April, but here we are anyway. Today's FIFO video, we're going to talk about what happens when you get sick. How do you pay yourself? What happens when you've used up all of your sick leave? I've had a lot of questions regarding sick leave, and obviously with what's going on with me at the moment, I've had to have a lot to do with sick leave and accruals, etc, etc. So stay by and we'll have a bit of a yarn about what happens when you get crook at work.
Well, we couldn't go without checking this out.
You're staring at the fires now. G'day, Keithy here. G'day, Keithy here.
So first things first, we're going to get back into a bit of the FIFO stuff, but I'll show you where we're at with the brain tumour at the moment really quickly, touch on it for about a minute, and then we'll move on to the FIFO stuff just to keep you guys posted on how I'm doing and why I'm not at work, why I'm recording from my home. So I'll take off the hat as I always tend to do and show you where we're at. So we're getting very close to the 6-week period now, which is the end of the first phase of treatment that I'm going through. You can see that the hair that is missing comes all the way around to about here now. It's coming out still, like I can pull hair out like it's out of fashion. Goes all the way around where it has been here. Hasn't grown back as yet, and it might not grow back. I've actually been told that it could look like this. I could have myself a little bit of a festivity haircut for the rest of my life, so that's something I'm going to have to come to terms with. So I'll go and have a talk to my barber and see if I can get a nice haircut to mop this up anyway. As far as my treatment is going, it's going very well. I'm obviously still under the same kind of treatment that we've discussed in all of my previous videos. Fatigue, etc, that's the thing. So it's sort of mid-afternoon now here in North Queensland. I've had about 8 hours sleep overnight, woken up, done a few things, and I've actually had another day nap. I had about an hour and a half today, and now here we are talking. So this is my life at the moment because of the treatment that I'm going through, which I've discussed a million times. Fatigue is a big thing. I need to sleep quite a lot just to be able to maintain enough energy and to be alive, be human and be functional for the rest of the day. It's affected everything in my life, I'm going to be honest. So yard work, for example, I can't do that, as you well know if you've watched my videos for a while. I'm very limited with not only fatigue but the physical ability, so I've lost a lot of strength. I've lost a lot of stamina, and I've lost a lot of energy. So I'm eating a lot of foods that will try and replace that, but because of the treatment that I'm going through, my body is essentially working 150% all the time to try and fight the brain tumour and all of the medications and whatnot that I'm on in order to fight that. They're very taxing, so it's taking a long time to go through this, but very shortly I'm going to start another phase of this treatment, which will then take me through more chemo. So yay, chemo for the rest of this year by the looks for me. So that's something that I've got to look forward to. Either way, it is what it is. I've said it many times. I just have to deal with this. I have to roll with it. And that's life for me. So let's get on with the video, the FIFO video. So it seems kind of fitting that today's video, the FIFO video, is all about what happens when you get sick and what you would do or how you would pay yourself in the case of having a long-term illness, such as what I'm going through right now. So there's a couple of questions that I have received on Chilling with Keithy, which is up there. Over on Facebook, I've had a lot of messages. Thank you very much to everyone who's messaged me there. Common question that I get is, you've been off work for some time, Keith, which is true. I've been off work since November 2021. Have not worked a day since. How do you pay yourself? What happens? Most people obviously wouldn't have 5, 6, 7, 8 months, however much annual leave or sick leave or whatever your leave is called where you work, to be able to pay yourself, to continue to pay yourself for a long period of time. Most superannuation funds will include an insurance, often called a salary continuance insurance, and that is essentially what takes over paying you after a period of time if you get into a case similar to what I'm going through right now, where your annual leave peters away for a certain period of time, 3 months in my case, and then the salary continuance insurance in your superannuation might take over after that period. everyone has a different insurance time percentage of pay, so there's a lot of things to consider when you're looking at this kind of thing. If you are in a position where you need to use some kind of long-term welfare leave, or any name that you might come up for that, whatever it may be called where you're working, in order to be able to pay yourself in the event that something is happening that's extremely serious with your health. Obviously it would be extremely hard if you had to take some leave for an illness or something that has gone wrong and receive no income for that period. You're not going to be able to work if you're extremely sick, so there's going to be something that needs to sort of pick up that shortfall there. So I definitely recommend it's worth looking into what you've got through your superannuation fund if you haven't had a look, to see if you do have something similar to like a salary continuance insurance, etc., etc. And also worthwhile checking the percentage of your current income that they will cover, because they're all very different as well, as I found out, and I'll tell you more about it now. So what does happen when you get sick? In the case similar to what I'm at, what happens? So often, and you'll have to find this out from your workplace because everything might be a little bit different where you work, or different mines or different industries. In my case, I had to use my sick leave from work for a period of 3 months before the salary continuance insurance, which is through my superannuation fund, was able to step in and take over to pay me so that I could still have a source of income to pay my bills. Everyone's got a phone bill, you've got to shop and get food, etc. So my salary continuance insurance is what kicked in after 3 months, in my case, of me being off work, sick, ill, whatever you want to call it. Now this is my case here I'm talking about, so you want to check your own with your workplace and with your superannuation fund to make sure that everything's aligned there. In your case, your months you might be 4 months, you might be 2 months, etc. So you're going to need to check that for yourself. This is just what happened in my case. I had to support myself for extra time after that 3 months because unfortunately the superannuation fund has actually taken quite an extensive amount of time to come good paying me my salary continuance insurance, which was due more than 2 months ago, and I have not received a payment from them as yet at the time of recording this video. So what does that mean? That's even harder too. If you don't have any funds available with your annual leave, sick leave, long service leave, whatever kind of things you might have at your workplace, you might run into trouble if you have an extended period of time from work with an illness that requires your salary continuance insurance to chip in and start paying you. So you need to consider during the time that you are working, earning money and accruing your leave, how you go about using that leave to pay yourself in the event that something goes wrong like this. So for example, just in my case, I've been very frugal with my leave usage, so I still have most of my long service leave available. I've worked for about 18 years where I am now, so I've got my long service leave as a bit of a backup plan there if I need to touch it. I also have quite a lot of annual leave because I don't take a lot of annual leave every year, so the accrual that I had there for annual leave was quite extensive, which was very lucky, given that, as I mentioned before, the start of November was when all of the brain tumour began. So I was very lucky in that I had all of my sick leave and my annual leave was quite high in order to be able to keep paying myself until such time as the salary continuance insurance kicks in. What do you think would happen if you were to get into a position where you became extremely ill and required a large amount of period of time off work because of that illness? Do you think that your leave balance would cover the time that you needed? Or would it be able to sufficiently pay you for the period of time that you're going to be off work? Even if it was perhaps a shorter period, say it was 2 months or 3 months, maybe even just 4 months, just a tiny bit over that 3 month threshold there. Do you think that your leave balance would be able to continue to pay you through in that time? It's definitely something that a lot of people don't consider because it's not something that often, especially with the younger fellas, myself included, you don't think about these kind of long-term things like this because it's not often that people of that age get, or have the need, I should say, to use welfare type leaves or long-term sick leaves or anything like that. But given what I'm going through now and what I had to find out rather quickly, it's definitely something that you should keep in your mind rather than burning your leave There's a lot of people in the industry who have contacted me who don't have much in the way of even annual leave, but also sick leave. So when their accrual for their workplace comes up with sick leave or welfare leave or whatever your workplace might call it, a lot of people who have messaged me, who also have been ill coincidentally, have incorrectly used their sick leave when they weren't really sick, essentially to get themselves some more time off work for a bit of extra annual leave, and found themselves in a pretty tough position when it did come the actual time to use their sick leave for its intended purpose, but had no sick leave. And what ended up happening in those situations is these gentlemen and women have left themselves without the ability to pay themselves and had to rely upon and contact their workplace to try and negotiate some kind of way to be able to maintain an income while they were actually sick. So when you're in a workplace and you use your leave balance for things that they're not designed to be used for, you may find that you'll come across a situation like this where you actually need the leave to use it and you don't have any leave available, and that could put you in a very bad situation where you can't afford to keep yourself, you can't afford to put food on the table, etc., etc. These leaves are here for a reason, to try and keep you afloat in rough times. So what happens if you've got no leave? You've used it all for some reason. Perhaps you had to use it all to look after a family member or one of your children. Then that's the time when you want to go to your employer. If you need to have an extended period of leave for an illness, I'm specifically talking about illnesses in this case, that is when you'll need to go to your employer and discuss the situation and see if there's any way that they might be able to come to the party and put you on maybe a special leave, or they might have a different name for it. Maybe they can come to an arrangement where they pay you leave in advance and you just work a bit of extra time once all of your situation has cleared up. You can work some extra hours here or maybe an extra week there, or etc., to try and make that balance back up for that leave that you needed to be, or the time that you needed to be paid, when unfortunately you didn't have that system available to do that. I do recommend looking at what your accruals are, talking to your workplace if you've got any concerns, or if there's something that you know might be coming up. Perhaps you have a partner who's about to go into a major surgery or something like that, or you yourself might be going in for a major surgery. That's the time when you want to keep in close contact with your HR and supervisor, superintendent, etc., to discuss the matter and try and find out a way to be able to work around that so that you can continue to get paid weekly, monthly, fortnightly, whatever you get paid, and you're not going to run short, especially during a really rough time when you've got operations or illnesses or medical conditions that need that time away from work and you can't work, you physically can't work. There are many different leave types and every workplace has got a different name for them. Mine is different to yours, is different to the next guy. But I think it's very important that you understand how they work, especially in your case, and in the event that something major does happen and you need to find your way to be able to pay yourself, to be able to pay the bills and put fuel in the car and food in the fridge, because those are very important things that often don't get thought about, especially for the younger age groups. Once you get up into those older age groups, that sort of becomes a bit of a focus thing, but in the younger age groups, it seems to be something that's overlooked quite often, and I myself nearly became caught out because it's not something that you think would ever have to happen to you, or you would ever have to use for that matter. But it's definitely something that you need to keep up your sleeve in case something happens. As I said, in my case, I'm 2 months post when my salary continuance insurance should have already started paying me for the extended period of time that I've been away from work. And unfortunately, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of red tape. Sometimes they do like to take a lot of time and make you really stress for your payments, but you don't have to stress from it. Now, you've got a workplace, you've got treating doctors. If you're ill, you're going to have doctors and physicians and whatever else on your side. So if you find your superannuation company are treating you a little bit like perhaps an animal, perhaps they're trying to make you really sweat for what you're entitled to, make sure you continue to talk to your physicians, doctors, to your workplace as well, because they're all people who can help you at this time if you're having trouble getting what you're entitled to. I also encourage you to go through your superannuation fund and find out what your entitlements are in a situation like this. So like I mentioned earlier, from my position, I'm getting 1% of what my usual wage, my annual salary would be when they finally do pay me. That's what I'm entitled to get while I'm going through this treatment, through this condition that I've currently got. So I'm aware of that. I know what % of my usual wage is, and I'm able to budget around that. So that may mean also for you changing a few things at home, whether you've got to talk to your insurance company for your car or your house, or maybe you've got Netflix that you never use and you can save a few dollars there. There's a lot of things that you can do to make your own life easier in this kind of case, especially if your pay is going to drop by a considerable amount and you're living a bit on the borderline with your means, with your pay coming in. So there'll be some adjustments. It's a very big adjustment period. I myself have even had to make some adjustments with life, but with a little bit of tangling and a little bit of changing a few things around here and there, I'm sure you'll get through it. But don't be afraid to message if you want any advice that I can give, possibly, on the situation that I'm going through now, which may be similar to yours. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching the video. We'll catch you next time. Stay safe.